What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall markets. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the economic calendar moving forward and why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as Tesla's about to be announcing their earnings. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. Deposit $2,000 or more and you're guaranteed 40 free stocks. The offer ends in just 9 days. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with Tesla. So if you guys look at Tesla stock, you guys can see how we have these wicks right over here, and then we have these wicks down here. This basically encompasses the range that Tesla's been stuck in. Tesla's been stuck between 215 and about the low 220s for the last week and a half, not really doing a whole lot. So the question is, what's happening at this point? And the answer is Tesla's just getting ready for earnings. We're expecting a very, very big move. So I'm going to be looking for a lot of volatility. So the question is, what's happening for tomorrow for the markets and how is this going to affect Tesla? The first thing is tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. There's not really a whole lot else that's coming out. It's all very minor data with a couple of Fed speakers like Bowman and Barkin, but everything else is very, very minor. We also have the Fed Beige Book at 2 p.m. That's also very minor. I'm not really expecting anything crazy for the week. Now, for more data, just know this that today we got GM and Verizon, a few more announcing their earnings. GM did very well. They beat on EPS and revenue and raised their guidance, which is why the share price ended up going up. However, going into tomorrow, we have even more earnings, which are more significant. In the morning tomorrow, we have Boeing, AT&T, and Coca-Cola announcing their earnings. And after the market closes, we have the notorious Tesla stock, not to mention IBM and the others. Now, Tesla is going to be a big one tomorrow after close because it's going to give us more insights on how Tesla's looking. We're going to learn more about their products, more information about them. And Musk is going to give us a lot of dates, a lot of excitement about the robotaxi and factors like that. But we'll see what kind of reaction the share price gets because we're expecting at least a 15-point move or higher by Tesla stock. So what's basically happening in Tesla is the fact that we are getting very tight right now, right? We're very, very tight and we're expecting a very big move. Despite the fact that technicals look a little bit more bearish, we will see if the bulls could step in or not. Tesla's going to give us more information about their earnings, EPS, and guidance. Guidance is going to be very key. Investors are also going to be looking at their margins, so I can't wait to see what they announce. I'll give you guys more specific details tomorrow because I'm going to be a little busy today, which is why I'm making this video kind of short. But I'm just trying to say that there's a lot of information coming out for Tesla with earnings coming out. And then another big factor is going to be what they tell us about their products moving forward. Does Elon Musk give us that wow factor that helps the share price go up? Or does this event lead to a flop and Tesla failing instead? So it could go either way. We'll have to wait and see. But that's something I just wanted to call out. For other factors out there, we have the fear and greed index currently at greed. That's making up the majority of sentiment. And momentum is at greed as well, as we're starting to see more buyers continuing to step in. For the markets, the put to call option ratio is at greed as buyers are continuing to defend, and the VIX remains more bearish, losing its 50 daily moving average, which tends to be more bearish for it and more bullish for the stock market. The market was also indecisive about the overall yields in the morning. So yields started to go up quite a bit, which led to more uncertainties. The uncertainties are what led to the market dipping in the morning, only to get bought back up. So that's why Tesla saw 215, SPY dipped to about 580, so did the QQQ, only to get bought back up, which is what I predicted would happen in my intraday videos. So my prediction yesterday was the market would get a nice bounce, maybe dip a little bit, then bounce. We got a bigger dip than expected in the morning, but then we did get the bounce later on, as we predicted as time went on. As far as Elon Musk and Tesla goes, whoopsie daisy, let me just delete that. Elon Musk, Tesla, and Warner Bros. Discovery are all being sued over alleged Blade Runner 2049 AI ripoff. I went over this in more detail yesterday, so if you want more information on this, just check that out. Check out the video from yesterday. I'm just trying to say that this is still some big news, which is a little bit more negative for Tesla. Hopefully, they come up with a nice settlements, and we'll see how things go with this. I'm not going to make any accusations. This is just what the headlines are saying about the lawsuit. So we'll see how things go. Right now, there's about a little bit under 43 million in volumes, low volume for Tesla, which is why it's very choppy. Short volume is kind of flat. Jefferies gave Tesla a hold rating. That's the latest analyst rating. And besides that, everything else is kind of flat. The price-price ratio is dipping a little bit as Tesla's losing some strength. When it comes to seasonality, we do have a tendency of being green about. Looking at this, I think it's about most of the time on those Wednesdays, we're green about 48% of the time, which is still not that bad. And then we do tend to see more volatility around 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not to mention around the second to last hour of the day. So look for some volatility during those times. Besides that, I'm not really seeing anything else that's too crazy, at least for Tesla. So the question now remains what's going to happen, at least moving forward. So, in my opinion, I think that Tesla's doing a good job at holding up, but there's going to be a very big reaction to whatever they announce tomorrow. If Tesla gives us, tomorrow we're going to be very choppy, by the way, when we open. So I'm not really expecting a whole lot. I think Tesla's going to be range bound between 215 and 220 throughout the majority of the day tomorrow. But once earnings comes out, if we do really well on EPS and revenue, we beat on everything, and then Tesla is very optimistic about their products, they need to give us some kind of wow factor about them. If Musk gives us a very exciting date that the robotaxi should come out by a particular time, whatever the catalyst is, we're just waiting to see something like that. If we get that wow factor, that thing that gets Tesla's investors excited and the share price starts going up, that's going to cause Tesla to really do well. That's when we're going to be looking for a nice move in the share price. Tesla, if it does well, we're looking for basically a break of this resistance, and I think Tesla could easily go up towards 230. So at least a close to 15-point move is going to pump this all the way up to the 230 area, taking us up towards that resistance. I think there's a good chance of that potentially happening. But if Tesla does poorly and they don't really give us anything too exciting, they keep saying the same things. And if there's any talk about the recession getting in the way of Tesla's guidance, and Musk says anything about that being pragmatic, right? That could also lead to downside. So if we get downside, my target's going to be all the way down to at least 200 a share. I think we're going to be dumping pretty hard. Technically speaking, this does look like a head and shoulders. It does favor a move back down to these lows in the 200s, if not below. So that's very probable for Tesla. It is very probable that this thing ends up dipping, but I'm not going to make any promises. I'm not here to do that. I just want to say that we'll see how it goes and we'll just hope for the best nonetheless. So, despite the bearish looking technicals, we'll see what happens with earnings and we'll be very patient nonetheless. As far as SPY goes, we dipped a bit in the morning only to get bought back up. So far, we're seeing buyers defending it very, very well. So, from the way I see things, we are dipping right now in the after hours. So, I think we might see a little bit of a dip again. We could dip to about 582.38. That's going to be our 20 EMA. If that fails us, we could get closer to about 580. But then there is still a lot of potential for this to bounce very nicely right back up towards 584. There's a very good chance we get that bounce as long as we hold our 20 EMA. So that's the most likely case in my personal opinion. A small dip and a bounce. Watch 582.38 as our support in 580. Look at resistance at 584, then 586. My guts tells me this is going to be dipping a little bit back down towards 582. Maybe it goes a little bit lower if that fails us, but then we should bounce back up for 584 as the most likely case in my opinion. As far as ES goes, we're making lower highs right here. We're actually dipping. I do see a risk of us dipping close to about 58.80. If that fails us, we're looking for 58.73. I think 58 to 58.73 could be tested, but we have to bounce off that range to turn back up, and we might be looking for a move back up to about 5900 afterwards. Now, watch 58.80, 58.88 basically is our resistance. My gut tells me we're going to be dipping to 58.80, if not a little bit below that, and then we're going to be looking for some buyers to come back and try to defend us right back up towards the 5900 area. So small dip and a bounce is the most likely case for this chart. For Nvidia, we're just range bound, going back and forth between 142 to about 144.5. I think tomorrow we're going to be dipping back down to 142. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. If we get that bounce, expect us to just be range bound for the time being. But if 142 does break, we're looking for a target of 139.8 to 140. I'm not favoring that. I think we're just going to be range bound for now. For Bitcoin, we're looking a little bit more bullish. We have 67,740 is our resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for a nice push all the way back up towards 67,900 to about 68,000. If we end up losing support at 67,500, look for 67,000 as our target. My gut tells me we might dip in the morning and start pushing back up for the 68,000 plus area. For others out there, we have NQ. I think NQ is going to be a very important one to watch for, as it's going to be dictated by the broader markets. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this dip a little bit more. I do see a risk of that in my personal opinion, so just be mindful of that, guys. So there might be a small dip coming towards NQ, at least as time goes on, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. So NQ should be completely fine despite the dip that could be coming, as long as we hold our key support. I think that we're going to be testing 20,400 as our supports, about 20,421. in that range before we see some buyers come back and try to defend us. Now, if we were to end up breaking past 20,600, we're going to turn bullish. My gut tells me this is range bound. There's going to be a small dip to 20,400 before we see some buyers try to push it back up. That's the most likely case, in my opinion, as it's holding its 50 EMA. For the QQQ, look at 493.84 is our support, followed by 491. I think we might be revisiting this range down here, and there might be some buyers that come back and defend us and push us back up to about 496. 496 is where we have this resistance, so look for a dip back down to the 493 area, and then a bounce back up to 496. For Apple, we are completely range bound. We could be dipping back down towards 234, if not 232, and then we'll be watching to see if we get a bounce after that or not. Look for a small dip to the 233s and see if we rebound. If we get that rebound, we're looking for a push back up to these highs. A dip in the bounce is very probable, but so far it's doing a good job at holding up. For a few more, Netflix is doing a good job at holding up, but I could see it dipping to about 760, if not 750. Let me just double check this, 756 before we attempt to see some upside. So watch for a small bounce, a little dip and a bounce as the most likely case for 756. For Celsius, we look a little bit more bearish. We might pop for 32.6 to be tested. But if we reject it, we could be dipping back down towards the 30.5 area. For Palantir, we're kind of flat right now. We're holding our 20 EMA very nicely, so look for a small dip towards 42.5. Then we could try to rebound and start pushing back up for 43.32. For Supermicro, we're kind of flat in this range. We have this resistance to watch for at 47. Might push for 47. We'll see if we get a rejection off that. There's still some weakness in this chart developing. Look for a pop in the morning, a push for 47, then a rejection, and move back down to our lows of the day towards 44 as the most likely case. Rivian's trying to break out. It might try to push for about 10.6, but the issue is whether or not that lasts depends on what happens with, our very important earnings that are coming out for Tesla and the others. So Tesla could affect this as well. So we'll see how it goes. For so far, we're more bullish, holding our 20 EMA very nicely. I do see potential for us to try to push towards 10.75. So I do see some upside potential in the chart. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We might be retesting 220. If we bounce off that, we're looking for 222. If we lose this, we could be dumping back down towards 219. So this could be dipping back down to 219. I do see a risk of this dipping. Look for 220, and we'll see if we bounce or not. If we don't get that bounce, look for more downside. So it's going to dip first, and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. AMD looks a little bit more bearish to me as we're making lower highs. If we don't hold above 155, I'm seeing a risk of us coming down towards the gap support at 151. Eventually, the gap fill for the 149s. I do favor that a little bit more. ARM is range bound between 152.56 and 150.5. We're going to likely be range bound for the time being. We'll see which way this goes. So I think it just goes back and forth between those levels for now. Coin, as long as we hold 207, we're looking for a bounce back up towards 217. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. For Amazon, I anticipate a dip back down to about 187. We'll see if we bounce again. So a dip to 187.5 to 188, and then a bounce back up to about 190 is the most likely case. Meta is looking more bullish on the 4-hour time frame. As long as we don't lose 579, we are favoring a move back up towards 585. So look for a dip to 579 and a bounce as the most likely cases. For Microsoft, we're going to be looking for more upside. We could be pushing back up to about the 430 area. We might dip a bit towards 425. Then we should be looking for a bounce after that as the most likely case. So look for some downside 425 to be retested. If that fails us, we're going back down to 421. If that holds, we go up to about 430. I think it's going to dip and then bounce as the most likely case, and we'll see how things go. Google is holding support very nicely. As long as we don't lose 165, we're looking for a pushback up to about 168. Then we'll see how things end up developing from here. For a few more, DJT looks more bullish, holding its 20 EMA. I think there's a good chance we push up for 36, and we'll see what happens after that. For the VIX, we're kind of dipping right over here. We're making lower highs and lower lows, kind of rejecting off these resistance areas. So I see a risk of us dipping back down towards 17.73, and then we'll see what happens after that. For the 10-year Treasury yield, we're actually looking bullish, breaking out, which is what scared the market a bit. But overall, it's not really affecting the markets. Same thing with the dollar. The dollar is continuing to break out. Could this be because the market's going to dip later on? We'll have to wait and see. I do want to call out one thing, guys. The VIX does have that gap to fill well above, which tells me there will eventually be a time the market gets a big correction. It could happen in November, if not by, I would say by like early next year. So we'll see. But with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. As far as Tesla goes, we'll see what happens with their earnings. So get ready. Expect some consolidation between 215 and 220. Then we'll see what the big move happens to be. But with that being said, guys, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. I'll be back for another video tomorrow morning before the market opens. Until then, take care and peace out.